Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the first All Mats Taken episode of 2026. I'm your host, Adrienne Jarrett, and today I'm going to be breaking down New Year's resolutions. Are they a complete waste of time, or are they that secret nugget of gold to help us grow our businesses and overall just improve our lives? The other day, my mum and dad were discussing Richard Feynman's theories on quantum space-time, and I won't pretend to understand it all, but one of the ideas is that we each live our lives over and over and over again, the same life. It isn't like reincarnation, it's the same life exactly, as it is now, on repeat, forever and always. It's something to do with the fact that we perceive time as linear, but it's actually cyclical. I don't really understand it, the how or the why or in general, but that's the overall idea. And if you're wondering who I'm talking about, Richard Feynman was an American theoretical physicist born in 1918. He's primarily famous for working with quantum mechanics. He won a Nobel Prize for his work in quantum electrodynamics. He also was recruited to be part of the Manhattan Project before he even finished graduate school, so he knows what he's talking about. If you have watched the movie Oppenheimer, he was played by Jack Quaid. Basically, he knows what he's on about. He understands this way more than me, so I trust that there is some scientific validity to this theory. It is a theory. But anyway, I've been quite flat the past few weeks, and I've just been feeling very uncertain and unclear about what I need to do in 2026 and beyond, really. And I've just not been feeling certain in my path or my goals. At first, when I heard this theory that life just keeps getting repeated over and over and over again, exactly how it is, I thought it's a little bit of a depressing thought. And sadly, for a lot of people, frankly, that idea sucks. But then the question arises as to whether we have agency, if it's the same life on repeat regardless. This idea can feel a little bit helpless, but I was thinking then we can actually twist this another way in this moment, in this time, and decide that we do have agency in the here and now, because ultimately we have control over our actions in this moment. So if I'm not happy where I am right now and up to this point in time, why not work really hard to make the remainder of this life something incredible that I would dream of living over and over and over again, so I can trust that my life will be something amazing that I can do on repeat. But that doesn't mean that it'll just magically happen. That's my goal. I have a lot of pondering, and I have to sit with it over the next month and see what I really want to focus on. I have a little bit of a clearer idea now than I did a couple days ago, but I just want to sit with it because last year I formally announced my goals for the year on the podcast, and I thought I'd pretty much done them all because I didn't go back and reflect on this until recently. Like in my head, I'd ticked them all off, and then I was looking at the list and I didn't do a lot of them, to be perfectly honest. A lot of them just kept falling down the list. However, I did hit my two most important ones. So I think that's why just in my head I was like, yeah, I pretty much did everything except for one, I thought, but I didn't. If you're wondering, if you're going back and listening, I didn't get the blog set up. That was a huge one. And I didn't start posting on Pinterest and that kind of thing. But I did run the summit and I did start teaching yoga again. And those were two probably the most important ones for me post-maternity leave. So I am really happy that I did those because they were really big goals. So I thought about doing a similar episode, announcing my goals for accountability and all that to the world. But then I really need to tune in and focus on what I want those to be right now, I realized. A few weeks ago, I was like really confident and I was certain and I knew what I wanted them to be for at least the first 6 months of the year. And I was really pumped up and I was really excited. And then in the last couple of weeks, I've just been super flat about it and just a bit lost and lacking direction and not aligned with what I set. And to be honest, I think social media is partly to blame for this because one of the main ones was that I finally decided that I was going to dedicate a good amount of time to growth on social media and give it like a really good crack, like posting every day for 90 days. I did start posting already. I was like, I don't need to wait until the new year. Like, I'll start right now. I started seeing some progress, but I quickly realized like I really suck at short form content. I knew I would really suck. It's a skill that I don't have. It's a learning curve to get better, and I love learning. I'm interested in filming, and I've been having fun like exploring different like camera techniques and hooks and things like that. So I don't think it's that part that's dragged me down, although I struggle with the timing, so I haven't perfected any kind of process for it at all. But I just kept getting dragged into scrolling, looking for ideas, and I ended up doom scrolling so much. Like, I found some amazing ideas, but then you get just stuck in doom scrolling. I think the doom scrolling sucked me dry. It's not just like there's this huge learning curve to get over and like being seen curve and all of that. I didn't find that demotivating. It's more just social media is a dopamine suck. I'm not turned off this goal, but I think I need to really find like a strategy that I resonate with, that I can follow and become a creator over a consumer and just plug and play it, make it really easy for me to show up, because dopamine cycles of social media is a real challenge and it's something I need to find a system to manage to help me actually see that progress. I think the other issue has been that I went on a little bit of a motivational spike and I created all of these like fabulous plans that realistically are way too much work for me as a mere mortal and full-time mother to an energetic toddler who refuses to go to bed at a reasonable hour. I've also been reading about Taoism the past few months, and the way that I've been planning and working has felt very opposite to the way and the Tao. So I decided that I needed to take a step back and reevaluate what I really want, what will actually be of use to me, and what I can let go of. I've decided to focus on an inward journey with meditation and writing and movement for the first 30 days of the new year, which is very like classic. I know it almost feels cliche, but I'm hoping this will help me find some more clarity. I know these work. And then this got me wondering as well, like, is this practice of setting New Year's resolutions even a useful practice? There is so much hype set up around goals and resolutions at this time of year. It's largely like weight and health related, but also we see a lot of business goals as we plan the year ahead. And it's naturally a time of celebration and reflection. This year we had a full moon right after the New Year's, which is incredibly powerful. But like, is setting New Year's goals a futile practice that will inevitably just lead us to fail in February? Or does it help us keep in line and grow and benefit for the year ahead? I remember hearing a stat many years ago about how most people failed their New Year's resolutions before like the end of January or something. So I decided to do a bit of digging in the data and find out, is this something that we should be doing that is going to be beneficial compared to doing this like at any time of year? Or is it possible that you're even worse off because you like force goals during the hype season? So here's what I found out. The short answer is yes, setting New Year's resolutions can be an extremely useful practice that helps people reach their goals when compared to setting goals at any time of year. But your success depends on, firstly, the type of goals you set, the support you receive to achieve those, and your mindset shift around the goal. Let's start with the difference between setting goals at New Year's compared to any other time of year. There was a study by John Norcross at the University of Scranton. They followed 159 people who set New Year's resolutions and 123 people who had the same goals as the first group, but they didn't set a formal resolution around it. It's quite a small sample size, but it's interesting. So basically, they found that by month 6, 46% of those who actually set resolutions were successful and still on track, compared to only 4% of those who didn't set formal resolutions. So they work, but how can we be one of the 46%? How can we set ourselves up for success? And one of the keys is the type of goals we should be setting. We want to set approach-orientated goals in the way that we're framing them rather than avoidance-orientated. I'll just add a quick side note. Most of the goals people set are in health, wellness, weight, fitness. So this is where most of the examples come from and where most people have been studied. But I think we can apply these to our yoga businesses as well. And it's also a good idea to understand for us in the wellness sector how people who are succeeding are framing these things so that we are working with our students or our clients. We can help frame our classes and the projects to work within these goals as well and help set them up for success. So help sort of facilitate this type of goal setting if that aligns in class. Okay, so a 2020 Swedish study found that those who used approach-orientated goals, like I will eat fruit daily, achieved 58.9% success, compared to only 47.1% who set avoidance goals. For example, I will stop eating candy. One of the lead researchers, Carl Bring, explains that you cannot erase a behavior, but you can replace it with something else. So if we're thinking about our business goals, it might be something like, I will plan my content 2 weeks ahead and post on social media 5 times a week using a scheduler. Or I will record all of the time I spend on social media and then formulate a plan each day to create more content than I consume. Or maybe it's like I will talk about my business to one person each day, rather than things like I'll stop doom scrolling and create instead, or I'll stop being shy about talking about my business with strangers. It's a little bit subtle in some cases, and the outcome and the goal is the same, but it's the way we frame them that makes the difference. So when you're writing your New Year's resolutions, reflect back on the wording and see if you've written it in an approach-oriented way or an avoidant way. Another form of goal is process-orientated. These have been found to be 15 times more successful than outcome-based goals. So it's basically focusing on the how to achieve something and the small daily things that you can control rather than the big picture and then getting overwhelmed by just focusing on this huge, large goal. For example, if we stick with this social media growth point, since it's quite a sore point for me, as you can probably hear, we could say something like, I will post once a day, or I will post 5 times a week, or whatever it is that realistically you can, rather than setting a huge goal of I will get 10,000 followers by May, or whatever it might be. These how-to process type goals help you build confidence and momentum because we're focusing on the micro actions that we can control rather than that huge thing. So it's what can I actually do today? And then ultimately, all of the little tiny micro actions that you've broken down to reach your big goal, they're going to help you get there. And then there is also one called performance goals. These are better than outcome goals, but they're still not nearly as good as process-oriented goals, apparently. A process goal might be something like, I'll improve my landing page conversion to 8%, or I'll get this many clients by this date, or something that often involves like upskilling or increasing deadlines or something like that, very like work centric. These ones can be really effective, but you really want to focus more on these process goals. So that's the type of goals. Now, I think it's also useful to understand a little bit about why we fail so we can try to avoid these pitfalls, because not 100% of these people that are setting New Year's resolutions are getting there even when they use these systems. So one is false hope syndrome. It's basically a combination of overconfidence and unreal expectations, which is probably kind of what happened to me when I set my post everyday goal. It pretty much just leads to this frustrating cycle of ending up repeating resolutions and failing them every time. People often averaged 10 attempts at the same goal and they repeatedly just kept failing. So basically, we want to stretch ourselves, but we also want to be really realistic with what we can actually have time and the ability to do. So go wild, but not too wild, I suppose. Another deeper issue is readiness. Clinical psychologist Amy Morin points out that setting arbitrary dates for committing to a major change is quite an odd idea. And if someone really wants to take significant steps, they need to feel ready for that change. It is possible to do this any time of year. In saying this, New Year's resolutions have what's called the fresh start effect. And there was a study by Catherine Milkman and her colleagues at Wharton in 2014, and they found that things like New Year's Day, Mondays, birthdays, the start of a new month, maybe if you're a student, the start of the semester, these all create this psychological separation from our past lives, and it helps us to categorize like past failures into a previous period of our lives. So that was us now, this is us today. Creating this fresh start has a really powerful effect. So even labeling like March 20th for those in the Northern Hemisphere as the first day of spring rather than the third Thursday in March produced a 354% increase in people choosing that date to start receiving goal reminders in this study. However, the limit to the fresh start is that it is a fresh start. So it doesn't ensure that you'll like finish or maintain your goals. So then how do we actually stay on track? The most robustly supported goal achievement intervention in psychology was developed by Peter Gollwitzer at NYU. Implementation intentions. So basically what this means is the format is like, if situation X occurs, then I will behavior Y. So we want to be clear on when, where, and how we're going to work towards the goal. For example, instead of saying like, I will practice yoga more, or I'll practice yoga every day, we might say, if it is 7 a.m. on a weekday, then I will roll out my yoga mat in the living room. And that's your goal. And there was a meta-analysis looking at 642 studies that covered implementation intentions and confirmed that this method is really useful in helping people achieve these goals. And the reason it works is because our brain is really good at responding to situational cues. So it notices like, okay, this is happening, so then I should do this. And this activates an automated response. So you can make it become part of your habit, and that way you don't have to think about it. And you reduce the need for like in the moment decisions or deliberations. It's just like, when this happens, I do this. End of story. We're like robots a little bit in that way. Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about this method, and he also talks about tying new habits to old habits. So for example, maybe you want to take more vitamins and you currently always have a morning coffee or a chai or a tea or some kind of beverage. So then what you would do is you put your vitamins next to your drink, or where you make your drink, or where you drink your drink. So then it's really easy for you to be like, okay, I take my morning beverage, I take my vitamins. You've like set yourself up for success by just adding to an already established habit. So you want to set this up for yourself and make it as easy as possible. So if we're going back to that practicing yoga at 7 a.m. in your living room example, maybe you have a tiny little corner or a basket where you keep your yoga mat, and it's right next to where you're going to roll out your mat. So it's not like you have to go to the cupboard to take it out and roll it out or anything like that. You just make it super easy for yourself and set your space up to make them happen effectively. So maybe it's that you want to journal more, or you want to write your social media content after you practice yoga in the morning, because that's when you're feeling really inspired. So you might keep your notebook and pen right next to where you practice. And this makes the process easier. You don't have to go looking for it or thinking about it. It's just right there. Or if you film B-roll and part of your practice is part of that, then you have a tripod sitting there, set up, ready to go. You just have to click play. You get on your mat. So just thinking about ways that you can design your environment to support you and make it really easy. There's a really cool and classic example of this from a hospital cafeteria study where they just moved water bottles to eye level in the fridge near the cash registers alongside all the soda and everything. And then they also placed water in baskets near food stations, and they increased water sales by 25%. They didn't do any education or make posters or like, this is why you should drink more water. They didn't try to motivate people to drink more water, like nothing. They just made it really easy for people, like see water, grab water, buy water. So for me, with my social media doom scrolling issue, then I need to restructure my environment a little bit. So maybe I need to find an app that locks me out so I can't do that at night, and then I go to bed earlier. So for your goals, think about how can you make the desired behavior and the process, all those micro actions that you're doing, the path of least resistance. So this way, if there are any undesirable behaviors, they require more effort than just like this really easy version. And this aligns a lot with me for like my Taoism studies, because instead of like constantly trying to fight against something, we just make our environment really easy so it flows and there's minimal effort and we just move through it. Another method for increasing your chance of success is framing the way you talk about yourself with I am statements. So instead of saying like, I will meditate or I want to meditate every day, you'd say, I am someone who cultivates daily meditation or mindfulness practices. Or instead of saying like, I want to grow on social media, I want to be a full-time yoga teacher, I want to be a content creator, you might be saying, I am someone who is growing a successful yoga business. I am a creator who's growing their audience daily, or I'm growing an audience to 10,000 followers, or whatever it might be. And the research from this actually comes from a study on voter behavior. They looked at asking people, will you be a voter versus will you vote? And they found that 10.9% more people actually turned out to be a voter when they asked them the will you be a voter question over will you vote. And the mechanism behind this is a term called cognitive dissonance in psychology. Basically, what this means is once you claim something in your identity, your brain actually experiences discomfort when your actions don't match with your self-concept that you work to maintain consistently. So if you say like, I am a yoga teacher who posts 5 times a week on social media, for example, your brain will push you to act like that person because otherwise the dissonance just feels uncomfortable. And this is also like quite aligned with yoga philosophy, right? So we teach that we are already whole and we are the person that we need to be, that we're shedding or removing these like obstacles and layers so we can kind of see that clearly, that true self. A Sankalpa practice works kind of from the same premise where you're not trying to become someone new, you're aligning with who you already are at the deepest level. So this comes in with this cognitive dissonance idea and using the I am statements. James Clear also talks about this in Atomic Habits as well. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. So framing your goals as identity statements rather than like achievement statements makes a really big difference. Lastly, I wanted to share a few frameworks that I've heard recently that I think are really fun and I really like the idea of, and I want to implement these this year. So the first one is writing a letter as if you have already achieved your goal. And this really ties into that I am statement. It's like placing yourself into the mindset of that future you and writing out the steps that you actually took to achieve that goal, and then painting a picture for yourself of like what your life is like with this goal achieved. This idea really ticks a lot of the boxes that I've talked about of the psychology frameworks that really work. We're like looking at the process, we're breaking it down into micro steps and focusing on those, and we're using that I am mentality and that process goal. The other one is this 3-part system for just making sure your year is amazing and memorable, and I thought this was really fun. So the first part is choose a misogi goal or challenge, which is basically like a big, grand bucket list type goal that really stretches you to the point that you may not even achieve it. But the idea is that even if you don't, it doesn't matter because you will grow mentally and emotionally and depending on your goal physically, and you will just have an amazing year. This could be something like hiking a pilgrimage or running a marathon or a bucket list destination or starting or scaling your business or writing a book or launching a podcast. Whatever mountain it is that you need to climb, it should be something that you find pretty hard and you don't need to advertise it. This is a goal specifically for you. The goal on top of the goal effectively is to like cleanse or purify your body, mind, and spirit, embrace fear, and rid yourself of limiting beliefs. The idea of this has been developed from a Japanese Shinto purification ceremony, which is held at a temple where people go to plunge into the cold waters of a pond filled with water that's trickled down from Mount Hakusan. The ritual is designed to cleanse your body, mind, and reconnect you with the natural world. So the twisted New Year's resolution goal version of this is that we're doing that, but putting something really challenging in front of us. So that's the first thing. Choose something that stretches you. So ultimately, you purify yourself and you connect closer to source energy and you just like make the year really memorable. Because if you think back on your most memorable years to date, something probably really big and profound happened. So how can we like plan that in and do something really big and profound to make the year amazing? The second step is to schedule 6 mini adventures throughout the year. And these are just like fun events that you should have on your calendar that you're going to look forward to. They could be like camping or traveling somewhere for the weekend or hosting a dinner party or going to a concert or event or so on and so forth. They don't have to be expensive, just like something fun. Ideas related to like growing our yoga business. It could be maybe special events that we run throughout the year, or it might be linked to like launches that we're running or collaborations or hosting a day retreat, or maybe it's even something like when we host notable class themes or something like that. You can get really creative with this and have a lot of fun here. The third and final step in this formula is to pick 4 healthy habits and work on one of those each quarter. For health, it might be meditate daily, drink 2 liters of water a day, have a daily dance party, and lift weights 3 times a week. And then you pick one of those in each quarter. That's your main focus. And then it's easier to continue that for the rest of the year, but you're not deciding to do all of them at once and then falling flat. So business goals might be something like telling someone about my business each day, or posting on social media 5 times a week with a strategic focus, or creating repeatable class plans, or maybe it's like write and stick to a business budget. So many things. It all obviously depends on like what you need. So it's 1 Misogi goal, 6 mini adventures, and then 4 healthy habits, 1 to work on each quarter. So then they just start to build on each other. And I like the idea of this 1% better each time. It just takes the pressure off. Like it's getting our reps in. And I think a lot of this that we've talked about reflects that idea as well. One last final note before we wrap up this today. I think it's really important to ask yourself, how interested are you in this? Because actually being ready and motivated, interested to change makes or breaks whether you add the new habits and achieve your goals. It's not to say that all goals have to be like interesting or fun, but you do have to keep yourself interested. This is supposedly especially important for any of our neurospicy individuals out there. According to Dr. William Dodson, it's really important for motivation to be interested in it. But I've also heard James Clear from Atomic Habits talk about it just for everyone being one of the most common reasons he sees people fail when they're creating new habits. So keep that in mind when you're setting your goals as well. Can you find some sort of level of interest so that you can maintain it? So to wrap up, here's what actually works according to the research in terms of framing your goals. You want to use approach-orientated rather than avoidance. So you're saying, I will, not I'll stop. You want process-focused rather than outcome-focused. So this is like what you will do daily. We're not focusing too much on the big end result. And we want to use identity-based statements like I am rather than like I want to. And to set yourself up for success, we're using implementation intentions and getting really specific. So that's the if X then Y format. And then you are designing your environment so the right choice is the easy choice, and just making that flow. So how can you just make your environment really good to set yourself up for success, and just make it as like plug and play as possible. And finally, remember that fresh starts like New Year's help you to begin, but they're not going to keep you going. You need to be really interested in what you're doing. That's going to help you achieve these goals. And you also want to be realistic with your capacity. We are stretching ourselves. We do have to still be realistic, because if we're not realistic, we lose that momentum and then they completely fall flat entirely. So New Year's resolutions can work, and they can work so much better than having no resolution at all. But you have to set them up right. You need to place your intention in the right place, and you want to have systems that are going to support you rather than just relying on willpower alone. Thank you so much for listening to the first 2026 episode of the All Mats Taken Yoga Business Podcast. I can't wait to see what amazing things that you do with your year. I will be here cheering you on. And if you want to look for some cool resources and helpful tools that are going to support you in achieving your goals, go check out allmatstaken.com/resources. I am regularly updating this when I find something new that I think is really cool and really useful for you guys and things that I use myself. So go and check those out. I have also managed to snag some very good discounts for you guys if you are going to be using these tools, and I can't wait to see what you come up with, and I'll see you next time on the show. Thank you for listening to the All Matt's Taken podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit follow, like, subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, leave us a review, and share with a teacher friend. This really helps others find the show so we can continue growing our yoga-loving tribe. I am endlessly grateful for all your support. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time.